Hi guys, Blacksmith MMA here. I'm going to talk about something that I started going into when I was doing a breakdown for UFC 298 for the main event, Volkanovski versus Topuria. And I thought I need to make a separate video because some people won't understand what I'm talking about. You know, people who don't have experience with this may just not really get what I'm talking about. So I want to talk about the mental aspect of Volkanovski, because it's something we've seen with other athletes, with Tyson Fury, with John Jones, you know, even with some other sports greats like Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan. And that is the inability to be healthy and happy when they're not competing. And it is a serious mental health problem. You know, a lot of people think it's not because these things are leading to success, but it is a problem and it stops you performing to your best of your ability, which is why I started talking about it in the breakdown. So Volk, the last fight, obviously I love Volk, he's one of the best fighters in the world, one of my favourites in MMA. A really competitive fight with Islam, then he takes a rematch, very short notice, very overweight. He says he's been drinking every day for a month. These are massive red flags, you know, and it's not just, I think it's not just a case of, you know, a bout of temporary depression or whatever. This is something, you know, we see in people who perform at a high level, you know, particularly with athletes, but also in the workplace. And their happiness all comes from the thing they do and they just can't enjoy taking time off. You might think that this is healthy, but it's really not, because it's not sustainable. You can't fight forever, you know, same thing, you can't work forever. Some people do, but you can't work at the pace where you're committing 7 days a week, you know, 20 hours a day, whatever it is, to work. There is a point where your body and mind will just say no. What this is, it means Volk is struggling when he's not competing to be healthy and happy. So we have this issue now where he's repeating the same mistake, in my opinion. So he's had the previous fight, he took on short notice, he shouldn't have taken it. I get he may have been offered a ton of money, but he sacrificed his brain health for that, you know. And the reason he took it, in my opinion, and from, you know, he's admitted this as much when he's been interviewed, it was because he was on a downward spiral and he wanted something to focus on to get himself out there. I feel like he's in the exact same situation now because, you know, 4 months or so is not enough time to go back to fight someone who is a lethal striker as well, by the way, but to go back in the octagon for a main event fight, it just is not enough time. You know, when was he sparring? Like a couple months after that knockout? I imagine, and I really hope this is true, but he seems like he's got a really good group of people around him with his family and trainer. I'm sure they've been telling him not to take this fight, to take more time off, to go back when he's fully recovered, when his head's in the right place, take time off. But as we know from the previous fight, Volk fears that. I think he fears that downward spiral and he wants to get back at training again. And I can relate to this. I've had similar issues in my past with mental health, with addiction as well, and I've been around people who've had the same mental health struggles and addictions, whether it's drugs, alcohol, or behaviours like being obsessed with working out, anorexia, body dysmorphia. You know, addictions, whether it's behaviour or substance, affect your brain in exactly the same way. In fact, behaviour addictions can be more harmful in many ways because you can indulge in them whenever you want, you know. So this is what I see in Volk, you know. The going back to it straight away, I'm sure people have told him to not do it, to take time off. And just like last time, I'm sure he said, no, I'm doing it. I need to focus on this. And his logic, to him, I'm sure it makes sense. You know, I want to avoid that downward spiral. Even if I lose, it will be better for me. I'll be in a better headspace. I'll be happier. I'll be nicer around my family because I'll be enjoying myself. You know, I'll be back to what I love doing. But it's not sustainable. That's the problem. It's not sustainable long term. You can't fight forever. You know, you can't be in training camp 24/7. And we've seen this with Tyson Fury, you know, and bless him for being so candid about it and speaking about it so we can have an insight. You know, you can see, and he did this documentary that kind of gave an insight into it, when he's not training, he just seems miserable and he does not know how to deal with life. And this is the same thing we see in Volk from what he was saying about, you know, that month where he was drinking non-stop. When you're not training and fighting, you know, there's obviously, you can still do some exercise and train, but there's a difference between being in camp competing, you know, doing the thing that, you know, you're obsessing over to be the best in the world. When you take time off, being able to switch off, be able to enjoy, be around your friends and family, that's really important. To not be able to do that, you know, it's just like someone who is in active addiction, you know, and they're obsessing over it. They're not indulging in their addiction, but it's all they can think about. They can't relax. Then really it comes down to not having the basic tools that a lot of us take for granted to be able to deal with typical frustrations from the day, from our day. You know, being able to communicate with people, being able to just relax, turn our brain off. You know, these sort of things, it's got me really worried for where Volk is at the moment, because he's made a reckless decision to go back into it against a very dangerous opponent after being knocked out, likely against a lot of people's advice. What would normally happen, we've seen this with John Jones, you know, what he's gone through in his career, all sorts of mental health problems, but the fights he's taken, he's got a management team or someone around him telling him no, you know. Or when he does make an impulsive decision to do to do something at the last minute, it's very calculated, and it's because it is weighted towards his advantage. I feel like Volk has just said, no, I'm doing this, you know, and his team aren't going to say no, they're going to back him. If that's his decision, he's a man. But it's, you know, it's just like when someone's in recovery, whether it's alcohol or body dysmorphia or whatever, initially during that recovery process, they have experienced people around them who've been through it, because you start having all these crazy ideas of things you want to do, you know, start improving your life. And sometimes you need these people to say, no, you need to slow down, you know, do it the right way. Don't rush and make any rash decisions. You're not supposed to make any big decisions in the initial, you know, 6, 12 months when you're in recovery for any behaviour or substance addiction, you know, because your brain is not it's not gone back to its default mode. And Volk, unfortunately, seems to be in this place. When I saw him in the press conference, you know, I just had this really uneasy feeling, because in him I could see what I've seen in myself, and I could be wrong. You know, maybe I'm putting 2 + 2 together and I'm making 10 or something. But what I saw was someone who, you know, he was glad to be back doing what he's loving, you know, but I couldn't help but feel like there was an underlying fear there. He's fearing what's going to come afterwards, even if he wins, you know, because he's not going to be in camp. And I've just recognised that in myself so many times, and in other people that I've worked with who have started to get things together, and, you know, outward appearances look good, and everyone thinks, oh, you know, you're doing quite well. But inside, you know, it's not really there, and you can kind of see it in the eyes. And for me, there's just this, not necessarily confidence about his performance, but a confidence just in who he is and where he's at, you know, and I really, really feel for him. I think this is something that needs to be talked about more, because a lot of people suffer from these sort of behaviour addictions, and it's something that's not really taken seriously. So many people use the gym, you know, or something similar to feel good, and then when that's taken away, you know, they do it every day. We've seen this happen all the time with athletes or gym goers. As soon as they've got an injury and they can't train, they don't know how to deal with life, you know, and they get depressed and they end up drinking or on painkillers, you know, or doing all kinds of things. Maybe it's gambling, you know, all kinds of unhealthy behaviours that they start obsessing over to, you know, to fill that void, because there's that thing that you're doing which is giving you endorphins and stress relief, and it's suddenly taken away from you. And the way you deal with that is you have the tools, you have people around you who are, you know, supportive, you know, you can open up to, but you also know how to, you know, how to get through the difficult times, whether it's, you know, all these things like practicing gratitude, you know, helping others, having a purpose outside of what your goal is, you know, and that can be helping others often with martial arts, you know. So this is something that needs to be discussed. I really hope for Volk, you know, this is something he sorts out. Yeah, I do feel like this is something that is really similar to Tyson Fury, and both of them, it's just something that people around them know they need to get sorted. But like with any mental health problem, you can't fix it for the person. They have to say enough is enough. I can't go on living like this. I'm ready for help. And when someone does that, that's when they listen to people around them. You know, they admit that their way of doing things is not working. And with Volk taking the fight at such short notice after that knockout, I just think that is a massive red flag that he's still, you know, he's still the one pushing forward, maybe not listening to people around him, making the decisions, and they're impulsive, rash decisions that are going to put him in harm's way and his career in harm's way as well, actually, because he should not be going back this soon. For anyone who's going through something like this, whether it's drugs, alcohol, a behaviour addiction, you know, and honestly, people don't realise, like, a lot of people, a lot of young men do get addicted and obsessed with the gym or with how they look, you know, or with gambling. You know, my channel, a lot of it is about gambling, and it's something I've seen with a lot of people, you know. Really, with any of these, whether it's a substance, whether it's a behaviour addiction, if it's something you can't stop, and it's, you know, you just cannot stop doing it, and it's negatively affecting your life, you know, and it's becoming an obsession, you know, the obsession is really the thing that makes it super unhealthy. You know, you need to seek help. Some people will be able to stop on their own. They've got, you know, some people are blessed with having a good community around them and support structure, and they've got the tools already to get through things like this. But for most people, you're going to have to find someone who's been through that before, and they're going to have to be your mentor to guide you through it, and also other people around them, so you can, you know, you could basically speak to someone who's been through it, because if you speak to someone who's not been through that, they will not understand. So anyone who's suffering from something like this, go seek someone out. I would look at any 12-step program, you know, even if you're not an alcoholic, you know, something like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, you know, Gambling Anonymous. These 12-step programs, you know, they will be able to point you in the right direction, because what you need is, you need to find people, a community of people who've been there, done that, they can support you through it. And also other people who are going through the same thing at the same places where you are, and you can relate to them then, and you can also help their newcomers. And that lack of purpose often is what gets people, you know, not having a purpose. Like with Volk, you know, his purpose is his career and everything else. The purpose, you know, it should be your family, but when you're suffering from this, logic goes out the window, you know, and honestly, people think, well, you know, how can you not be happy just being with your family and, you know, enjoying time with them? It's because your brain is not right, because of years and years and years of this behaviour, which has changed your brain chemistry. So it's not the time to point a finger, to blame people, to do interventions, you know, that are, you know, that are shaming people. You need to reach out to one of these organisations, whether it's a 12-step program, whether it's other people who have been through the same thing, and you need to find out. You need to find out how to go and live life a better way, and how to deal with the things that come up day to day, you know, that are stopping you from being happy. So that's the main thing. If you're suffering from it, the help is out there. Just reach out, start speaking to people. Even if they're the wrong people, they'll probably point you in the right direction. And for Volkanovski, I really hope he gets the help he needs, if that's what he's going through, win or lose. You know, this is something that I really appreciate him coming out and speaking about. And we've seen it with Tyson Fury and with John Jones, other fighters as well. What we need to start talking about is why this happens, you know, what to do if you're suffering from it, and where to get help. So that's why I wanted to make this video. Yeah, I mean, if you've got any questions, feel free to ping me a message, send me a comment. I'll be happy to speak to you, or to, you know, point you in the right direction if I can help in any way. Thanks, guys.